Right, so thank you for joining us tonight at our first parent and carer trainers training. So I just want to let you know that the topic tonight is understanding post-16 study options so that they can make informed decisions. And we've got Richard from Career Wave delivering this for us tonight. So I want to really try and give you a quick introduction. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, just a couple of minutes to let you know really why we're doing this. So parents are often the first port of call for your child when they want to have a conversation about what they do next. And I think they do that because they're in a safe and supportive space at home. And it's really important that you feel comfortable about having those conversations. And I think sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming for parents and carers because they find it quite difficult if they don't understand all of the options that are open to their child. So that's why we wanted to do this tonight, is to give you an idea of all of the post-16 options that are out there so you feel better informed to be able to have those conversations with your child. So obviously we'll take any questions at the end of the session. Richard's going to go through the various options available and talk about why it's important that they need to be well informed so that they're making the right decisions about them. I did want to mention though, as I say, this is our first training session for parents and carers. It's a new program that we've just introduced because it came from some feedback that we had from parents last year. And if you have any ideas for particular training around careers that you would like to see, something that you're maybe unsure about, that you would like more information about. I know somebody had mentioned in the feedback that they didn't really know what labour market information was. So we're looking at hopefully providing a labour market information session for you. But if you've got any ideas of parts of the programme that you would like to find out more about, please just let us know. And again, we would welcome any feedback after the session. So if you enjoyed it, if you got a lot out of it, or if you didn't even, please do let us know, and it'll obviously help us improve in the future. So I am going to just admit these last couple of people that are waiting in the lobby, and we will hand over to Richard to get started. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, thank you. Nice to meet you all virtually. Obviously, we can't see you, we're not face to face necessarily, those who are. Hello. My name's Richard. My company, Career Wave, is the career guidance partner for North East Futures UTC. So we work very closely with Sarah to kind of provide elements of the overall careers program, which admittedly is an excellent careers program at the school. What I've got today, I'll just share my screen. I've got a presentation. It is PowerPoint. It's probably the best way of doing these things still, I think, certainly for me, as I don't know other software other than PowerPoint, to be perfectly honest. But I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start. As Sarah said, there'll be time for questions and answers at the end. And I'll try to go through the slides as kind of promptly and quickly as possible to leave time for that. I've got quite a few slides, but we'll see how it goes. Like I say, I'll try and speed up. I've got a little bit at the end about labour market information as well. So if we get a bit of time, I'll cover that. If not, I'll focus primarily on the post-16 options. So if I just share my screen and go into slideshow. Can that be seen? Can the presentation be seen on the screen? Awesome, that's great. So, as I said, my name's Richard. Career Wave's the name of the company. We partner with North East Futures UTC, and this is about post-16 options and a little bit about decision making, how these options are kind of decided upon at the end of year 11 or throughout year 11, really, rather than at the end. So, what I want to do, just give a quick background to who we are. We're an independent and impartial professional career guidance service. In other words, this is what we do. Career guidance is what Career Wave does. It doesn't really do anything else. It's independent in the way that it sits alone. We're not representing a particular education provider. We're not from a college, for example. We're not from a sixth form. We represent only ourselves, working in partnership with over 60 odd education providers now in the northeast of England. All of our advisors, and the majority of people who work for CareerWave are career advisors. They are qualified at degree level or postgraduate level. And it's those qualifications that then enable you as a career advisor to go into schools and deliver what we call personal guidance, the one-to-one guidance to students. In Northeast Futures, our advisor is Emily Walker, and I would imagine she's proceeding pretty quickly and covering quite a lot of the students who are currently in year 11. As we move towards Easter, where we're kind of thinking that's around the latest time where students should be making decisions in terms of their timetable, because they're then moving on onto their exams. So when your students get into year 11, Emily hopefully will still be our advisor doing this job, because we like a little bit of consistency if we can. Currently, she works in Northeast Futures on, I've put Wednesday down, Sarah. Is that right? Or is it Thursday? Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, it's Thursday. Okay.
Yes, it's Thursday. Sorry, I couldn't find my
Emily's
microphone.
in Northeast Futures on a Thursday, like I say, doing the one-to-ones. And by the end of year 11 at Northeast Futures, every student will have had at least one career guidance meeting. And that's, again, I mentioned before, we call it personal guidance because it is personal, and it is one-to-one. Some people might have more, but that depends on need. But they'll certainly have at least one career guidance meeting before the end of year 11 with CareerWave. Other conversations will happen within the school. Now, we have a website. I'll show you a link to that at the end, careerwave.co.uk, and that website will tell you a little bit more about who we are, should you want to know who we are, and should you want to access some of the support that we have online. So I think it's really important to define what is actually meant by a career in this kind of, at this time. Certainly in the past, when I first started doing this job too long ago, a career tended to be referred to as that job that you did for your life, really, or the job that you did that was important to you through your life. It was the bit that sort of perhaps was a passion, it might be an interest, or it might have been the main money earner during your kind of time at work. We've kind of changed that definition quite recently. The reason why is essentially the world of work's changing so fast. People often are doing so many different kinds of work in their lifelong journey that we felt as a service, as CareerWave, that it was all important to kind of define career is more to do with the journey that you're on, through work. And it could be, as I said, a number of different jobs. Your journey through learning. We know more and more people go back into learning as adults now, perhaps going back to university part-time or doing kind of distance learning. And also there are things that go on in our lives that are as equally important to us sometimes, including hobbies, volunteering, any interests and responsibilities we might have in local communities. And I think sometimes they need to be respected as being as important in that career journey as a job might be. What this tends to mean is when people come along and talk to us, we explain about this definition of career, and we feel that it actually engages students more, because if they don't know what job they want to do previously, it's sometimes been a bit of a barrier to the conversations. Whereas if we say, well, actually, it's everything you're doing now, it's everything you could be doing in the future. And yes, of course, it's jobs and it's university and all of those very traditional things too, then we can kind of have those better conversations. So for us, you will see career referred to in this way. It isn't something that just CareerWave's doing, by the way. We're starting to see this referred to as a lifelong journey in most kind of serious publications talking about career pathways and career journeys. So if we think that that's what career means, and that's certainly what we back, what is actual career guidance? Well, career guidance from the CareerWave side of things is what we do when we go into schools and we meet people one-to-one. We view a guidance interaction as in-depth. We need to be able to have an in-depth conversation with students to then be able to help them to navigate their way through their career journey, to help them understand what the options are, reflect on strengths, see work opportunities, and also see work opportunities that are likely to grow in the future. So it's quite an in-depth, quite a complex conversation. Those meetings are also meant to be challenging. The challenge is there so people can ultimately feel more confident that they're making the right decisions for themselves. Sometimes the challenge can be viewed sometimes a little bit negatively because people sometimes think that what we're trying to do is change people's minds. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get them to think in more detail about the choices they're making and challenging them really to kind of better understand what that decision entails. So that again is what Emily does when she's in the school, having these one-to-ones. It contributes to the overall careers programme at the UTC at North East Futures. And as I say, other conversations are going on all the time with Sarah and her team and the tutors and the teachers around kind of the future and your students' pathway. So what I want you to do is just have a little think, because this is already something that, you know, their career decisions are already something that have been decided upon by yourselves and by your children over the past few years. And I just want you to think about, why did North East Futures UTC become the chosen destination for your son or daughter? And these are some of the things that kind of, as an external partner, I see as a reason why people might go to North East Futures UTC. First of all, there's a balance of academic curriculum and technical qualifications that you don't always get in mainstream education. There is a specific insight into certain sectors, digital and health sciences in this case. You have a strong careers programme, which includes industry mentors, work placement and project-based work. Again, very different to what you will find in mainstream secondary education. There are plenty of enrichment activities, including things linked to the digital sector and health science sectors, such as coding clubs. You have a city centre location. That maybe was an attraction for some of the young people going to sort of study in the bustle and hustle of Newcastle. And it was ultimately something a little bit different. So a UTC brings a different kind of aspect to education. The reason why I'm sharing that is because a lot of the decision making around why North East Futures was the chosen destination might be the same kind of decision making processes you as parents go through or the students go through when making the next decisions at 16 when they're in year 11. Okay, especially that little bit at the end there, that's something different. And that is something that we use quite a lot in our kind of discussions with young people. We use this phrase, are you going to stay on, if you like, or are you going to do something different? Staying on being the trajectory that you're currently on, the type of education you're currently doing, or something different, which is, again, something maybe elsewhere at a different institution, or maybe doing it in a different way. So what I want to do before we get on to the post-16 options is a little quiz that we do with students when we're presenting like this in assemblies. we'll go through what post-16 option is this. I don't want any answers shouted out or anything like that. All I want you to think about is, do you know the answer to these options? Then we'll go through the presentation, and hopefully by the end of it, it'll become clear in terms of the language we're speaking about, what those different options entail, etc. So this option suits students who like to study academically, have a passion for or an ability in a subject. Will suit students who can cope and do well with exam assessment. Will suit students who like deep theoretical study, building up knowledge and facts. They can lead to university, and they by and large are studied in a sixth form. So in terms of post-16 options, just make a mental note. What post-16 option do you think that is? Okay, so the next one is a post-16 option that would suit students who want to learn about a job or an industry or a wider sector. They maybe suit students who would prefer coursework assessment, although admittedly there is increasingly more exam assessment with this option anyway. At level 3, there is increasing academic rigour. That means that these subjects are becoming a bit more academic. They used to be a lot less so than they are now. They come with work experience. Level 3 can also lead to university, and on the whole, they tend to be covered and studied at further education colleges, but can also be offered at sixth forms. And finally, the other main option we talk to students about is the one that suits students who are ready to go into work, suits students who like learning by doing it. You work for an employer day in, day out, the same one. It is a competition to get one of these. You can get UCAS points though, which you can use to go to university, and learning happens in the workplace and often on day release with a college or a training provider. So again, just a mental note at this stage, what are those options? So in terms of what we're talking about here, we're talking about when we come into year 11, we're starting to think about, well, which way are we going to go now? The main post-16 options, there's a lot of them. You could do A-levels, you could do what's known as technical courses, you could do a mix of them. So you can do an A-level technical course mix. You've got new qualifications like T-levels, you've got apprenticeships. There are possibilities for young people to go on to personal development courses should they need a little bit more time to decide, or some work done on basic skills and employability. And we've also got foundation study courses for people who need that extra support in the place where they want to go and study. Okay, so there's quite a lot of different options post-16, and all of them are quite different. But what we try to do, we try to kind of crystallize what decisions are when it comes to year 11 into something fairly black and white to start with. The reason why we do this is because it provides something easier to kind of hang on to, if you like, for the conversation we have with students and for the students themselves. So the first thing that we say you're thinking about doing is you're thinking about either staying on or doing something different. Now, the phrase staying on, that kind of goes back to certainly my time as a student going through secondary school, and possibly some of yours as well. And that was back at a time when you had, in most secondary schools, a sixth form. Okay, and that sixth form, if you stayed with that sixth form in school, I remember the conversations being, you know, are you staying on? Are you staying on? And at the time, the other thing you could do was to go to college or do something like, and I'm showing my age here, something like a youth training scheme, now related to apprenticeship type training, work-based learning. And that was kind of the conversation way back when. Now, we feel quite strongly that really that's still the starting point today. There is that opportunity to stay on. And by that, what we mean by staying on is staying within the kind of education system that you currently kind of learning in, or your young people are currently learning in. So staying on at school was moving or transitioning from GCSEs into A level. Something different was everything else, basically. Okay. And that something different tended to be very different from what that staying on option was. It wasn't about sitting in a classroom learning, because lots of people had became sick of that, or they couldn't cope with doing that much longer, didn't want to do it much longer. Perhaps they wanted to go and do something that was a lot more related to the workplace, or do something with their hands, or do something in a practical way, or maybe not sit those exams at the end of 2 years. So we frame this initial decision essentially around that. And we find that it's actually a really useful sort of visual for young people, and again, parents, when we've talked to them, to kind of, I guess, as I said, frame these decisions around, are we going to stay in that same sort of academic pathway, or we're going to jump off? And actually, you may have young people, children of yours, or people you might even have friends, who've stayed on in that academic pathway for many, many years. Because of course you can go to university and do something very academic, a subject, for example, like chemistry. You can then do a master's in that subject. You could do a PhD in it. Ultimately, you could actually become a career academic and become a lecturer at a university, or write books. So the journey, the pathway in terms of academia can last forever, really. For most people, it lasts as long as they want to stay on that. And when they want to get off that, it tends to be when they want to do something that actually relates to the workplace in some way. So as I say, that's kind of like the visual we talk about and illustrate to people when they making these decisions. Is it staying on or something different? I have to say, however, that kind of decision has already been made to some extent by yourselves and by your children, because you chose to come to a school that does do something a little bit different. Yes, they still offer GCSEs. In the sixth form, they'll still offer A levels. But actually, the context in which the learning is applied within a UTC is one that has a work focus. And there are lots of other extracurricular things that go on that put the learning into that context. Again, in this case, within the digital sectors, arguably, and health sciences. Not to say that students couldn't go on and do something completely different to that, but that's the context in which learning happens at a GCSE level and an A level at the UTC. And like a lot of other sixth forms, the UTC and schools also offer some of the more sort of practical subjects as well, linked to computing, linked to health sciences. So a little bit more about some of those options. These slides here come from a publication that we brought out at the start of the year, which is basically a publication CareerWave pulled together called Choices at 16 Plus, essentially. And each of these slides give a little bit more information about each of those options. The academic option, the very academic option is obviously A levels. And A levels tend to be offered within sixth forms. Even when they're offered at colleges, the colleges will probably call the place where they offer A levels a sixth form centre. Again, that's something I often ask students. Do they understand where the term sixth form comes from? I've more likely got an audience here today who remembers where the term sixth form comes from. When we're in school, the students in that school are clueless about it, because it doesn't make any sense, because they go from year 11 into sixth form. The numbers are all wonky. Back again, when I was at school doing GCSEs, it was fifth year where you done your GCSEs. And therefore, if you wanted to stay on, you stayed on and you went into sixth year, or what we called lower sixth and upper sixth at the time. So it helps again to remember that. So when you're talking to your students, you can kind of again give them that little bit of a visual in terms of what it means to stay on in sixth form. It was that, you know, kind of quite easy transition, if you like, of moving from GCSEs to A levels. So A levels are like GCSEs. We don't pull any punches on that. The number of times I've met students who've come back from a sixth form experience back into a college, for example, and when asked about why did you leave the A levels, the answer being that's given is, well, it's just like school, and you feel like banging your head against a wall at times, because of course it's like school. You know, not identical, but it's more like school than any other option you're going to pick, because they are subjects that cover facts, theories, and knowledge. They are going to be assessed by exam at the end of the second year. So it's all or nothing, essentially. You know, you will pick 3 kind of pretty academic subjects, although you can mix it with maybe a vocational subject as well. They are going to look at your GCSE grades, because exactly the reason why is because they are exam assessed. So they're going to be bothered about what you got in your exams at GCSE. But this is the option that is the most school-like option. Again, we've got to say at the UTC, the framework, the way that these A levels are framed at UTC, again, is based around digital and based around the health sciences sector. Therefore, they do bring a bit of work context to them. The type of work context you may not get in a sixth form like Newcastle Sixth Form College or the Sixth Form Centre at Walbottle Academy, which was where I went. So that's your academic option. Now, I'm not calling this one an academic option. T levels, these are the new qualifications. They are technical. They're called technical levels. That's what the T means. So therefore, they fall into this technical category where you would do a subject that relates to specific jobs or a wider sector. Now, I'm still calling it a technical option, although this is the type of technical option that I suggested at the start has become a little bit more academic. So in some ways, T levels are a little bit more closely associated with A levels compared to some of the other vocational technical qualifications that we see, such as BTECs. They are also brand new, and they are changing a little bit as they evolve. So, for example, very recently, the government have agreed to lower the amount of hours that you would have to do out on work placement with a T level. That was something that when T levels were introduced, they said you need to do. Now, I can never remember it either, 90 hours or whatever it is of work experience. And it was essentially an absolute essential criteria. So they've reduced that. And what we're likely to see with T levels is we're likely to see some of this slight shifting in how they're delivered as they become introduced into the curriculum. At some point, if the UTC are going to, continue to deliver those kind of technical qualifications, there will be consideration made to T levels when those T levels that relate to to what the UTC offer when they launch. So T levels are still being launched as we speak. This September we'll see another tranche of T levels introduced. So if when they come to the end of year 11, your son or daughter are going to look around local colleges, you will see T levels there. So what you need to bear in mind with T levels, they are practical to some extent because they're related to work. However, they're quite a bit more academic than other previous technical qualifications. They will come with work experience, but they are new. They are new and colleges are finding their feet with them. Okay. What the government are saying is by the time that all T levels are introduced, any existing BTECs, and this is what they're saying at the moment, this could easily change, any existing BTECs where there are overlaps may well disappear or are likely to disappear, and T-levels will take their place. I'm not 100% sure that'll happen. There's a lot of clamour to keep both the T-levels and those BTEC qualifications because they are really good qualifications for a lot of our students. We'll just have to take a wait and see approach to that. Like A-levels, you need your GCSE grades at 4 and above. Quite often you're going to need higher grades than that for a T-level in engineering, which has a lot of mathematical content. You may well need a 6 or a 7 in maths to do that T-level because of the level of mathematics within that. The same could probably be said on some of the higher level computing courses that are going to come out as T-levels as well. So they're on the market now and will be increasingly so over the next couple of years. Now, these are the ones that they are replacing. The term applied generals probably doesn't get used as much as it used to, but I'm still using them because they're a good way of describing exactly what they are. Applied generals are those qualifications that cover kind of like a wider sector, and that's where you would find your BTECs, your cash diplomas, which are childcare and health related qualifications, your Cambridge Nationals. I think a lot of us will recognise these qualifications as BTECs. That's not quite accurate because BTEC is the awarding body. Okay, and there are other awarding bodies like cash, like Cambridge National, but BTEC seems to be the word that's stuck over like quite a few years, so they tend to be just referred to as BTECs. But these applied general courses will cover off something like art and design, health and social care, digital, you know, so digital studies like graphic design, for example. They are on offer at 2 different levels. So unlike the T-levels where you will have to get the grades to get onto them like A-levels, with applied general qualification, with these BTECs, if you didn't get those 4s and above, more or less across the board, but certainly in 5 subjects, you may well be put on a level 2 course first with progression to the level 3. If that happens in 2025, when students who are in year 10 end up going to colleges or sixth forms, it might actually be that the level 2 study leads into a T-level. But again, we just don't know what the picture is going to be then. Like T-levels, applied generals have been accepted by universities for a long time now. And actually, there aren't many universities that don't accept level 3s in BTEC subjects. Sometimes we'll have conversations with parents about, you know, with perception, who have perceptions about A-levels being the best way of getting to university. Yeah, in some cases, but actually in most cases, the majority of degrees at the majority of universities will accept alternative qualifications at level 3, like the BTEC. So we've got this confusing picture within the technical courses at the moment where we've got T-levels and we've got these applied generals, or more commonly known as BTECs, available for young people. Then in colleges, and again, it is a confusing picture, and I can only describe these other courses, and this is the best way I thought that we could describe them, as job-specific courses. These are the types of qualifications you would go to do at college and only do that subject and only pick up those skills in that specific role. So you'll see in the illustration there, we've got hairdressing and or barbering. It could be either, couldn't it, really? That is something that is a skill. You need to pick up that skill at a very basic level to then build on that skill. So actually, the majority of young people who at 16 choose to do something job specific, like hairdressing, might well be put on a level 1 course if they've never done it before. And the reason why, it's nothing to do with their grades. It's just you need the skill. You need to build the skill up, you know. Similar courses would be professional cookery. Sometimes you can go in at a level 2 if you've done cookery as a course at school and you can show you have those skills. They will take you on to a higher level course. But again, quite often they don't. Quite often it's level 1, maybe level 2 that you will start at, even if you got 8s and 9s. Similar courses include construction related trades, the likes of your bricklaying, your joinery, your plastering. Again, you're going to go there. You need to learn how to build the foundations first. You need to know how to mix cement. All those very basic things that you would learn from the outset. You are totally reskilling when you do those types of courses. And hopefully the idea is you finish those courses, you could finish at a level 2 and go out there and start earning, because that's the level you would need to competently do that job. Okay, so again, we've got another range of technical courses out there. They're not as detailed, if you like, or as academic as T-levels and the BTECs. They might not lead to university, but what they will do is they will give you the skills to do a very specific job. So again, in our world, we've called them job-specific courses. You don't see them referred to them in college prospectuses, but for ease of understanding, that's why we've described it. You could get into them with any grades, basically. However, again, in the conversations we have with students, better to get your maths and English, otherwise you're doing them again in any of your courses at college or sixth form. And then we've got the increasingly popular apprenticeships. Now, the reason why I've listed that after the job specific, after the BTECs, after the T-levels, is because they are a little bit different in how you apply for them. Apprenticeships, as we say to our young people we meet, they're real jobs. They're not pretend jobs. They're not practice jobs. You don't give them a go. They're real jobs. Apprenticeships only happen when an employer wants to increase capacity in their business. Ultimately, you're not doing it out the goodwill. You know, you're not saying, oh, it'd be great to take on an apprentice. You're taking them on because you need that help. You want to train somebody up, and ideally you want them there for a long time after that. Otherwise, you've wasted your training. So they are real jobs. What we sometimes feel as career advisors is that apprenticeships are often seen as an option that's the equal of a BTEC or the equal of a T-level or the equal of A-levels. What we need to unpick with that is that actually we need to flip it. They're not really. They're not an option. What the option is with apprenticeships is an option to apply for an apprenticeship, an option to go into a competitive process, essentially for a job that comes with training. Okay, very good training with qualifications that you could get at college full time, or training that you could get in a sixth form that offers these qualifications as well, these technical qualifications. So you get the same type of quals, but the key part of it is that it's a job. The key part is you can choose to compete for them. Okay. You therefore have to be pretty proactive as a year 11 to get an apprenticeship. You have to try hard. You have to, write a lot in your applications. You have to tell employers that you've got the skills that they're looking for, that's advertised in the advert you're responding to, essentially. Now, yes, with apprenticeships, we always hear examples of people who can get other people into apprenticeships because of who you know. That isn't going to change. That's like the workplace as well. But, they are there for your son or daughter to compete for. It might be they compete for them during year 11 towards the end when those apprenticeships are advertised, or it might be that they apply for apprenticeships after going to sixth form or college, because you can do that too. Apprenticeships are for any age. And actually, when you look at the data, when you look at the stats, unsurprisingly, people who are a little bit more mature with a little bit of more experience behind them tend to get more apprenticeships or are more successful in getting apprenticeships than those a little bit younger. But we shouldn't be anything but positive about them. We just need to be realistic with our students and tell them you need to work hard to get them. You have to do extra things to get them. And on our website, on the CareerWave website, there's an article about how we think is best, or what we think is best to do to get an apprenticeship to give you a competitive edge. Lots of things go on in the UTC that give you a competitive edge compared to mainstream. That is without doubt as well. Very quickly, as I mentioned this before, for some people, they may need extra time or extra support before moving into a particular kind of type of qualification or looking at a particular sector. This is where the foundation learning tier comes in. So foundation learning may well give people the option to look at a range of different qualifications and try them out, for example, with a little bit more support from support workers within a college, normally a college environment. But also you might find sometimes teenagers being teenagers will go through tough times as well, and might disengage with their learning, and that's where some of these personal development opportunities like the Prince's Trust come about. 12-week programs where actually more or less you could fit that in the summer before then engaging in college or sixth form. A personal development program for many young people is just the ideal kind of next step. So there are other types of options out there that are slightly less mainstream that you might not know much about, but they are out there and they are available should the situation arise for them to be needed. And these foundation level and personal development courses can fit in with that kind of qualification sort of level pathway, if you like, through level 1 courses at college, into level 2, into level 3. There are people who will do personal development courses and one day go to university. They just at this stage might need that little bit more support. So if we go back to this quiz we did at the start, and I'm sure you've got that mentally now a little bit more clear in your head, I'm pretty confident you would have got the answers anyway. What post-16 option is this? The academic option, theoretical study, studied at sixth form. That is, of course, A levels. Advanced levels, the next step from GCSEs. The one that looks at industry sectors, looks at level 3, there's increasing rigor, work experience supports the learning. Level 3 can lead to university anywhere, tends to be studied at FE. That's what we class as a technical course. As you know now, technical courses include BTECs, they include T-levels, they include those job-specific courses where you do a skill and you then have that skill. What this one is, those who are ready to go into work, you're only going to get the job if you're ready. Of course, that's an apprenticeship. Okay, so you can see that there are differences, that each of these pathways or each of these options could lead to university level study. We're now having more degree apprenticeships, for example, where you can actually get a degree in the workplace, have it all paid for. Wonderful stuff. Again, quite competitive, but wonderful opportunities. So just think on, if when we get to post-16, these decisions that you made when you chose UTC, similar kind of thinking. How do I want to learn? Where do I want to learn? How do I want to be assessed? Often overlooked. People shouldn't forget A levels are exam assessed. So don't sit down and have a conversation with your career advisor saying you hate exams and then say in the next breath, yeah, I'd love to do A levels, you know. Well, you can hate exams and do well at them, of course, but how do you want to be assessed? Where do I want to go after the next thing? So where do you want to go at post-18? What does that mean for your choices? There will be some degree options, for example, that require certain types of study. There are many degree options that don't, though. Many. Lots and lots of degrees where you could have literally studied anything. But within what they do at the UTC, within computing, within health sciences, there's more likely to be a need to have studied certain subjects for that next step. So that needs to be thought about if there's a pathway there already. And then finally, it's important, this is a touch upon the LMI. What jobs are out there? What are growing? We've got clues with that, with where your students are now actually studying. A UTC like North East Futures can't exist unless what they're delivering relates to the workplace. The opportunities for growth in the Northeast in the digital sector and in health sciences has been deemed to be worthy enough of putting in place a school like North East Futures UTC. It wouldn't have been given the go-ahead unless there were areas for growth. So we need to understand what is going on out there. I will just very quickly show this one, okay, which is a slide about LMI, labour market information. It would be wonderful for there to be something more put on about it, because it's dead important to know. But in our local area, the North East LEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership, who look at the local economy and help to stimulate the local economy and, you know, attract outward inward investment, they've identified digital, health and life sciences, the top two there, advanced manufacturing and the energy sector as those areas for future growth. But what's important is not to forget about what we call enabling services. So within each of those growth sectors, you will have people who work in finance and business services. Okay, we will need construction services to be able to build our energy sector. We will need transport and logistics to import and export our advanced manufacturing. We will continue to need education to provide our young people with the skills to be able to go into those sectors. So this is what the LEP talk about on a kind of a macro, on a wider level. There's lots more information we could look at with LMI. And, you know, at the end of the presentation, I've got some links where we can go and have a little look at that. And the presentation can be shared with you, and you can go in and have a little look around some of those links that we've got. I'm just going to go through those links there. We don't need to look any closer at that. We just need to jump onto that because we are approaching 10 to 6. And there's the question and answer section. So I'm now going to stop presenting and take any questions that you may have.
Hi.
Hello.
It would have been quite handy to have that link slide up for just a fraction longer, but
yes.
The other thing is dates. When do these decisions need to be made?
That's a good one. You know, look, I think for me, young people will change their mind right the way through a year, and they'll change it quite a lot of times. Okay, so I don't think these decisions in year 11 have to be a concrete decision. However, as a guide, we probably do most of our work within these one-to-ones that we do with the students within that first term, and probably the first half of the second term, because what you want students to be doing is engaging with the open events at the institutions that they want to go and have a look around. You will find that some sixth forms in particular, especially ones that we could arguably deem a bit more competitive, are the places where they're more likely to have fairly certain deadlines. You know, within the Northeast, we do a lot of work all over the Northeast. One's just sprung to mind in Durham, which is Durham Johnston School. They do have deadlines for applications, and it's usually around about January because their small school sixth form fills up. However, if you look at the local colleges, they have open events every month right up until enrolment in September. The reason why they've got them is because they know people change their minds, or they know some young people are late to the party kind of thing. So I think as a guideline, if you're kind of considering what you want to do within that first, well, from now really, but within that first term of year 11, moving into the first half of that second term up to February half term, and you've gone and visited some places and you've made some applications, because you can make as many as you want, it's not restricted to just applying to one place, then that is a good sort of rule of thumb. In A-levels, you know, you could put down at this stage, you could still put down any combination of A-levels, get an interview at a sixth form, get offered a place, turn up in September, have a couple of weeks doing those subjects and think they're not for me. And there's this period of time when people enroll, you could call it the settlement period, where people sometimes do change courses. I'm sure that's happened with the UTC and with Sarah's students as well. So rule of thumb, kind of first term, first half of the second term of year 11. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
There are no deadlines, really, I suppose. You know, I think that's the reality. What we want young people to be is on the right courses. Colleges are aware of that. Sixth forms are aware of that. They're not looking for that absolute concrete decision. Apprenticeships will have deadlines because there'll be job adverts, and this is the deadline, you know. So that's like any other job. There will be deadlines around that particular apprenticeship opportunity. So
Can I just add to that as well, Richard? So from the UTC's perspective, obviously we support the students right from the start of year 11 through the Easter period, giving them as much information as we can about what's out there, what's available to them, so they can consider their options. They can go to the open evenings, they can have a look and see if that's for them, which is great. However, once we start getting closer to the exam season, we do find that sometimes the students feel a little bit overwhelmed because they're kind of thinking, I just still don't know what I want to do. And this is why we're trying to get the parents more involved with those conversations, because that's still okay. They might kind of get their exam results and go, oh, well, now I know what results I've got. I might want to do this. Or I was thinking about doing that, but I didn't get the grades I wanted. So now I might want to do this. And that's okay. It's making sure that they know what options are out there and what they need to have to get into those options. And as Richard says, if they've made those applications already based on their predicted grades, which they should have, then they can take one option that they've applied for or another option that they've applied for, and that's fine. The colleges expect that, we expect that not every application that we get is going to result in a bum on seats. It's that kind of situation with most sixth form and college providers, so we understand.
These decisions are having to be made off predicted grades during year 11, not the actual grades they might get.
Yes. And then obviously once they get their results, they'll come into the UTC in the summer, and there'll be a whole team of people there to help them understand whether what they thought they wanted to do is achievable with the results that they've got. And then we'll just confirm that they've took the steps that they need to confirm that place. Or if they haven't done as well as they thought they were going to do, then what are their options? If they haven't already applied for something else, we'll help them to do that. So the support is there right the way across, right up until September. Generally, if we want to make sure that those students have got a positive destination in September. That is our main focus and our main goal. So we will give them as much support as possible to get them that positive destination. And even if they decide to change their mind on the 1st of September and they want to go somewhere else, those colleges and sixth forms, they might not get into the smaller ones, but there's usually an option there still available for them at that late stage.
Yeah. I saw somebody sorry, I just quickly, it was related to what you've been saying, and I'll come back to you in a second. Someone popped up, do you need your GCSE results to make your decisions? Absolutely not, and you shouldn't wait for them. That's kind of like an absolute must not do. You sometimes do get students saying, I'm going to wait until I get my GCSE results to decide. Just don't do that. You'll miss out on going round as many places as you want to do. So it's based on what you think. To be honest, you could write down any grades. Obviously, the school will know your predicted grades, you know, so the students will have an idea about what they are, you know. But again, you know, they can vary. People can have a fantastic GCSE exam season and others cannot. You know, things do change. But yeah, don't wait for your final grades. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I mean, just an example, my son could go either way. He's absolutely passionate about cooking and things and thinking about sort of catering sort of apprenticeships. Equally, he could do quite well in his GCSEs.
Yeah.
But say he does do well in his GCSEs, at what point is the last point he could make a choice to, say, pursue an A-levels route rather than a apprenticeship route?
probably no later than October half term. I've seen it happen as late as that quite often, and it depends on the sixth form. You know, they'll have their own kind of policy on that. Certainly, GCSE results day is not too late. Certainly the first few weeks in September, you're starting to push it by October half term, but I've seen it happen. In fact, my co-director, Tracy, her son moved from a sports science BTEC, which he was doing, into A-level study at the same college that he went to in October. You know,
so you reckon you've got about a month after results day that you could change course?
If probably
surprises occurred. Yeah.
I mean, not guaranteeing there's places, you know, that we can never do that, and you wouldn't advise that that's kind of what should happen. However, yeah, by and large, yeah.
I would advise that he would apply for both and then make his decision when he gets his results.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very good advice.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% that.
It was just a quick question around predicted grades. Obviously, we've got like a full year where these children can go off, and whether if they're like my son did well with the maths, but not so good with the English, which is a must. So I'm going to obviously put a bit more effort into that.
Mm-hmm.
So are we saying that only when they submit the application, say I've just looked on Gosforth Academy's website, and they're saying you need to, they've got a deadline of you have to submit by next February for a place in September. So are we saying that the predicted grades that the kids just got would be the ones that we would have to, do we have to put them in?
No, you don't have to put it. It's your application form. You want to be honest about it, because, you know, in the case of maths, for example, if you're going to want to do A-level maths at Gosforth sixth form, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think I'd be fairly safe in saying they'll be after a 6 or probably a 7 to do that.
He got that, but what I'm saying is his English isn't. So, like, you know, what I'm saying is he might not get the like, if we wanted to go and would that matter if we didn't get?
They'll take every person on individual merit. People go to sixth forms and have to resit one of maths or English. That's the reality. People do. People turn up at sixth forms and they do that. No, it won't be a big problem. They take everything at individual merit. What grade is he getting roughly for English?
I think it was like something like 4 or 5. I'd
be all right.
Yeah,
do you think? Yeah, I mean, I do think, yeah.
I mean, I never had, like, I'll be honest with you, I was never academic when I was a child, but when I'm a senior lecturer, and I run the MBA programme at Sunderland Business School, but I was going to say that I got through in an access course and it hasn't been mentioned. And it's just that I ended up going and doing neuropsychology at Newcastle University, but I didn't have a maths and English, like GCSE. Like, literally, I went straight into work from, I think I left school when I was really young and went into like office work. So I know what you're saying with the career journey, but you never mentioned this access course that you can do.
Because it's not post-16 as such. It's a choice at 18, 19. So you can't do an access course. I can't remember. I think it's 19 because it's adult funding. So if you were a student going back after a year of doing something you didn't want to do, you would go back into the 16 to 18 group of options, which doesn't yet include access courses. That comes at the adult end of it. If you were to go back and want to say, for example, like yourself, go to university and you didn't have those level 3 courses, it is more likely that an access course would offer you that path, that kind of more straightforward pathway. So it wasn't part of the presentation because of that. So it's not part of the booklet because it's not really an option at 16. Well, it's not an option at 16, an access course. In terms of like the requirements on English and maths, it's fair to say, you know, relatively speaking, against kind of my age, it's relatively new that actually that was a barrier. You know, English and maths is only, again, relatively recent that you had to actually resit after you'd done them at your GCSE. There was a time you could just simply walk away from them, you know, and not go back and do it. But any qualification you do now as an adult, you would be assessed on your literacy and numeracy would be assessed. And if you didn't have the qualifications, let's say you were an adult going to do an apprenticeship, you would do English and maths as part of that apprenticeship, you know.
Well, I know
So,
this all too well at the minute because I'm running
Yeah.
I've got they do it at endpoint assessment, which is standards have just been changed, but
okay, yeah,
we've
yeah.
got people, the senior leaders coming through, but they literally haven't been academic, and now they can write
Yeah.
academically.
No,
But they
100%.
you know, they have got to go and do their level, is it level 4 or something, maths and English that they have to do for to get through the endpoint assessment. You know, but it's like we say, it's a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey, and you can come, anything can happen. You can, like, I give that illustration of stepping off academia and going and do something not necessarily less non-academic, because it's still academic, but doing something related to work. Nothing to say you can't jump back on that academic pathway. Nothing at all, because you have access courses, because you've got kind of, you know, open university options, you've got, you know, part-time options. You could go back full-time. Yeah, there's no problem with that. It's happening more and more.
Thank you. Thanks.
Anything else?
Just thank you very much for the presentation. It was very informative, and so yeah, lots to talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you see, you know what's coming, don't you?
Aye. Yeah.
So
Thank
when
you
will our
anyway.
children expect to talk from you this over the next few months? Talk with
Next
you.
year.
So a lot of them have,
Next
a lot of the year 11s have already had their talks with the careers advisor, but some of them will get a second round of talks depending on where they're at. So we usually do an exercise with them just to see where they're at with their thinking, look at their destinations, what they're thinking about, and those that need the extra support will get a second session. Any students that have SEND needs, or who fit into a disadvantaged category, they will get a second session as well. And we'll just make sure that all of those students have all of the support that they need before it gets to the point where they need to make that decision. So obviously we're asking parents to help us with that and have those conversations at home just to keep it at the forefront of their mind. But obviously we're putting in a lot of support at school as well.
Does the substance of the conversations they have at school get relayed to us in any format or not?
Yes. So if your child has already had a one-to-one, the action plan that's created during that one-to-one will have been emailed out to parents and the student. It's also available on their Unifrog profile, so they'll be able to see that when they log on to Unifrog, but the parents should have had it emailed out.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any more questions? Oh, okay. So we've got, if my daughter has not had her first careers meeting, when should she? So in the year 11, so we are running behind slightly because we missed a couple of sessions in December, but we are catching those up quite quickly. So we're hoping to have all of the year 11s through at least their first session by February half term. We have kind of made a huge dent in that already, so there shouldn't be too many left. But it's in alphabetical order, so I'm looking at your surname there, and if your daughter's got the same surname, that'll be why.
Yeah. I think it's important to say as well, just to let you know that these conversations that we have in the time that you've got the conversations for can go in any one of a number of directions. Realistically, you're not going to get absolutely everything that you need to kind of convey across in that meeting. and sometimes the gaps need to be plugged. Now, if those gaps are getting plugged at home and there's some confusion around what those gaps are, I would just encourage you to feed that back into Sarah and the wider team. And that's where second interviews might be able to be fit in, or it might even be just a quick catch up over a break or lunchtime, or a drop in that could be put on for those particular students. It doesn't always have to be another full sit down and conversation. You know, we do focus primarily on post 16, focus on where next, all that stuff that we've been through today. But like I say, sometimes conversations that are important to your child on that day might go off in different tangents. You know, we try and bring it back in, but there may still be gaps as a result. And there might actually be your own opinions on this that you want to kind of raise and challenge. We're well open for anything like that. That isn't a problem at all. We've got thick skin. If it's criticism, it's criticism. If it's just a question, it's just a question. It isn't a problem. So do feed it back in to Sarah, and things could be picked up again.
I think to add that to that as well, Richard, I think the more information that the students get along the way, the more often they change their mind. So we want to make sure that along that journey, they feel fully supported, depending on what that decision making process looks like. But also, this is why we offer drop-in sessions. So the parents might not be aware, but all the students should be aware that we have. So I offer drop-in sessions every break time and every lunchtime, where the students can come and talk to me. If they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed about those decisions or anything like that, they can come and talk to me in those sessions. And then those conversations that I have with students can then lead on to another session with the careers advisor, or some further work with parents and things like that, or even just looking at when open days are for the places that they're looking at. If they're missing a little bit of information that we can provide, then we will. But we offer drop-in sessions to help them have those conversations in a more informal environment, so they're not with a careers advisor, they're with me. They probably feel a little bit more comfortable with me because they know me already. So we try to make sure that that's available every day of the week, so they can have that when they need it. And have we got any more questions? No.
One more, sorry,
Yeah,
that
go on.
last slide you had up with the links on, could you put it back up so I can get a screen grab of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I can do afterwards, I can send those slides out. I'll get Richard to share those with me, and I'll send them out to everybody that's been in the meeting today, so you'll have a copy of them.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
All right. No problem. Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it was a little bit of a late one, but we wanted to see if we could get as many parents here as possible so that they could actually join us if they were at work and things like that. We are hoping to have more of these sessions. So as I say, do let us know if there's any topics that you would like us to cover, if it's careers related, and we will try our best to get those fitted in later in the year. And again, as Richard's just said, reach out if there's anything that your child's struggling with, or you want to know that there's a gap in your information that you want to fill. Please just reach out, and we will try and help as much as we can. But again, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope it has been helpful, and I want to say a big thank you to Richard as well for delivering that for us as well.
Okay, thanks everyone.
All right, thanks now. Have a good
Bye now.
night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.